I assume it's on the topic of left-wing ideology. I assume it's on the topic of left-wing ideology, right? No, I assume so. Where do we move forward? To move today's political spectrum more left-wing, would you associate with a huge change, or would you associate with smaller steps, something like perhaps capping wage differentials between the working class and the business class, so to speak? The owners and the bottom line workers, would that be a good start to cap wages in a kind of Yugoslavian socialistic manner?
Because we're looking at a system, a global system of capitalism. And we're taking, or I'm taking, human beings as human beings universally. So I think if you want to look at the way things change, you can make a direct observation of the processes happening in the world today. And you can look at how people achieve their objectives in progressive change. So if you look at the concrete example that we've got at the moment of the Middle East and North Africa, it's quite clear that the mechanism of fundamental change is revolutionary overthrow of the existing order. Now, how does the revolutionary overthrow manifest itself in terms of what people want? Actually, it begins at a very simplistic level. They want small things, but they discover that the structure of power under the existing system does not allow those small things to be carried out. And therefore, a revolutionary justice, a sense of cause, develops within a significant layer of the population across the world, at different places, at different times. But we have one of the instances, one of the points of transition taking place in the world at the moment. And therefore we can observe from this point of transition what the very nature of change in the world is and the way change happens. So it is an accumulation of underlying discontent exploding on an issue or a series of relatively minor issues. I mean, look, the question in Libya. We have an armed conflict in Libya. One city pitted against another. One layer of the population pitted against another. Seizing arms, learning to shoot them, and preparing to die. For what? Because one man is there. That's what we're being told. One man is the reason for a violent conflict and clash of millions of people. Well, evidently the one man is the illustration of the point, the focal point. I think it was Archimedes said, "Give me a fulcrum and I will move the universe." You can shape and transform society and social relations around simple, focused issues. So when you ask me, does change come about, revolutionary change or fundamental change or progressive change come about because you introduce this or that little reform? No. It comes about because the ability to introduce reform is hindered and blocked by the existing structure of power. And therefore it can be a very minor issue that causes the explosion of conflict. After all, look, the American conflict with Britain, the Boston Tea Party, I mean, about taxes and tea. The Gandhi's movement, well, they went and collected salt. In South Africa, they just burnt their passbooks. In North America in the 60s, people got on buses. In East Germany, people said they want the right to demonstrate. And in Libya or in Tunisia or in Egypt, people demanded the downfall of the dictator. Now, what's the significance? Because the significance is it is a universal phenomenon we're observing. It's not a localized phenomena. The weirdo Egyptians or the weirdo Tunisians or the weirdo Libyans, as we have been encouraged to think about them. by our own rulers. Look at the Middle East. I saw an article this morning, I read an article this morning. Before 1916, there were no borders between Morocco and Mecca. And you could travel by train from Morocco all the way to Mecca. By train. Now it's all sea cut up and the countries are divided with straight lines, dividing in the sand, made by the British and the French. So in other words, the impositions of the state structure, of capitalism, of imperialism, of the nation state created by the dictators, by the thieves, by the plunderers, is the mechanism for exploiting their people. And just the same as we are told to regard, a lot of the talk at the beginning in Tunisia and Egypt, the mass media in Britain was telling us or promoting the idea that the danger is Islamic fundamentalism. And of course, in a comical way, Gaddafi was watching the telly and he said, right, if they start here, that's what I'm going to say. So that's why he's been cockroaches, Al-Qaeda, Qaeda. That's what he says. Why? Because the British and the Americans, they were trying to make that up. When the people were protesting in Tahrir Square, what were the Americans? Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, the British government, hundreds of people being shot. What do they say? The democratic governments of Europe and America, they're trying to say, please will everybody stop using violence. The danger is the Muslim Brotherhood. Why? Because they're hand in glove with Mubarak and his dictatorship. Right when the Soviet Union fell, they said, oh, down with dictatorship. We support democracy. But why all these years? Ben Ali was there. All these years, Mubarak was there. Not a word of opposition. And even in the end, they thought, okay, well, we can make a deal. Even we could let Gaddafi blow up our airplane, kill our people, who cares? We can make some oil money. Tony Blair flies out there. The London School of Economics gives a PhD to his son. Pays him, takes a few million in the back pocket. Makes a few consultancies with the head of the company. The British government made trading deals. George Bush made deals. Clinton and co made deals with the family. Prince Andrew, a lot of them. Because the billionaires think they're in common company. When they sit there together and they, stay in the five-star hotel together and they have a big meal, wine, dine, drink, get out their rockers, live in the same environment, swim in the same sea, stay in the same hotels, go to the same yachts, even have it off with Berlusconi's whores. And then they turn around and say, suddenly, they found their feet. Twice they found their feet in the last 2 months.
Can I ask what's the matter with you? Sorry.
Twice they found their feet in the last month. We're discussing things. In case you didn't know, you want to have a blah blah blah?
Just a
Blah
moment.
blah blah.
Just a moment. Can I get back to ask you?
One sec.
Yeah, well,
Two times in the last 2 months, they found their feet. One was a small demo in Iran.
Yes.
The Iranian government must listen to the protesters.
Don't talk about Iran, mate.
Then in Libya, because Libya, suddenly they think, well, there's a chance, we can send in the special forces.
Your
there
mate
they
was
are.
shaking hands with him, Tony Blair. Your mate was shaking hands with him.
Inside the country already. In other words, an undeclared declaration of war has been made by Britain and America against Libya, against the people of Libya. They don't want a revolutionary government in Libya. They want to seize the oil fields from the Libyan people to guarantee the supply of oil to themselves and their economy.
Good, so
that's
we can
why
have
all
a better
this
life here.
So in the last couple of days,
What's
about
wrong
the
with that?
oil price, the panic they want to make out. The panic they want. They're about to make massive cuts in the welfare state and living standards of millions of people in Britain. How are they going to get away with it without people being angry? Make them blame the Libyans. Turn around and say, well, it's the Arabs and all their revolt that caused the oil price to rise and caused the economy to collapse, and that's why we've got to take your money off you and your children and your grandfather and your parents and your pension. Because the oil price has got to happen before, happen in the... This is the discussion now. The distress...
No, it is... sorry, you've kind of moved away from my first question.
I'm sorry.
But nevertheless, it is quite interesting.
What was your question again?
Well,
what didn't I answer?
No, that's... I'm going to come to that. Now I'm going to just... continue on your topic. It is quite interesting geopolitically, the positioning of these countries which have had these revolutions now. It is rather questionable whether they have been incited by adjunct provocateurs and the likes of foreign...
I don't think that...
But that's neither here or there. I can't really... You can only guess that could happen because it's happened in the past, right? The likes of foreign agencies building up revolutions to then gain control. Well, it's rather the point being they are very interestingly geopolitically positioned, these countries down by the Suez Canal, and a lot of trade routes from China go down there, a lot of but what my first question really was the idea of just talking about left right wing ideology, really. Like I was saying to you, where would we go to create things more left-wing and more fair? Would we choose to have caps on wages? Would we choose to do other things? That's really where I was going from. And one thing which interests me...
I'm trying to show that this,
there's a varied amount
about
of points.
Bringing about minor changes is inextricably connected with the power of the social movement to enforce its changes that it wishes. So you have to have sufficient force to be able to open up the spectrum for bringing about change or defeating government. So, for example, on the 26th of March, there's going to be a big demonstration, Hyde Park. We can expect maybe 500,000 people on the demonstration.
What's it for?
This demonstration is against the cuts to the living standards of the majority, to pay, which are being used as a means, we are being told...
Can you demonstrate if you're unemployed and on DSS as well?
Yes, you can demonstrate, my friend.
So I can see you there.
Preempted you, mate. Preempted ya. Anyway, this demonstration will indicate the social opposition in society to the programme of the government. If it's sufficiently powerful, then the government begins to retract various legislation and turn around and say, oh, it's possible to do this, and it's possible to do this, and we can find some money from here, and we've got some money from there, and the bankers should pay a bit more. If you don't protest at a sufficiently active level, then of course they get away with whatever they want to get away with. That's how it works. That's what you can see both in the Middle East and North Africa and in Europe. And actually, I don't know if any of you have followed the story, in Wisconsin in the United States of America, huge protests by tens of thousands of workers. Tens of thousands of workers. Suddenly, the country that apparently doesn't have a working class has got a working class again. So, clearly, what appears to be impossible, the overthrow of the dictators in the Middle East, the transformation into class politics in the United States, and the defeat of the cuts in Europe, all these things are possible. We don't have to accept any of them. It depends on the amount of social organisation and protest. That decides it all. And that's why last autumn, when you saw relatively small student protests in London, they are relatively small. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. The biggest demonstration was 50,000. It is not the end of the movement. It is an indicator of the direction in which the wind is blowing. We are entering a period of profound social upheaval across the whole of the Western world. But not only the Western world, the entire planet. That's the truth of the matter. And that's what Egypt, Tunisia and Libya indicate. Otherwise, if you wanted to have, human beings as scientists can investigate controlled experiments in chemical or biological or bacteriological or physics. But of course it's more difficult with human beings, isn't it? But with human beings, we have to look at grand social changes, observe the processes that happen, and then extract, abstract, be able to understand why this has happened and what it means. Now, the revolutions in the Arabic world have a universal significance. And that universal significance is the emergence. Why are they happening? Because of the urbanization, the modernization of society, and the creation of a working class. The same process that's leading to discontent in America, that is illustrated in discontent on the streets of all European countries, is the process that is driving the upheaval in the Middle East. Egypt, Cairo, city of 18 million people, I believe. Correct? 18 million people. So this urbanization and the youth demanding their rights, associated mentally through the internet, with a commonality of interest with people in every country in the world. Someone in Tunisia on the street, a young kid, or a young kid in Egypt, or a young kid in Libya, they have fundamentally the same outlook and aspirations as someone in London or in America. Fundamentally the same. And therefore there is a commonality which is the thread running through the whole process. Why are the Western leaders worried? Because they rely upon a balance of forces, both internally, to exploit the working class to a sufficient level, and externally, to have rich countries plunder the poor countries at a sufficient level, to maintain the existing balance of power between the classes. And that's why the rulers get all worried all of a sudden when a revolution breaks out in Tunisia or in Egypt. And they fear, you see, they condemn Gaddafi. Suddenly they're all one voice in condemning Gaddafi. Whatever they did yesterday with his son or one of his sons or he himself doesn't matter anymore. Suddenly they all find one voice against Gaddafi. But if it is fundamentally incorrect for there to be a dictatorship in Libya, why is it not fundamentally incorrect to have a dictatorship in Saudi Arabia? Or why is it not fundamentally incorrect to oppress the people by violence in Palestine? So, the universal factors that any ordinary human being can see, for some reason become merged into a complicated political, geopolitical problem by the ruling class and their politicians. In reality, what we're seeing is the birth of a global revolutionary movement with common social, political and economic aspirations. There is probably, in reality, even though in Egypt and in Tunisia the regime has not really been overthrown, you just got rid of one man and changed a few faces. In spite of that, it is the awakening of the people that leads them to be able to impose their demands on society. For this reason, I was told last night, for around a month and a half, revolutionaries have been demanding a constituent assembly in Tunisia. Suddenly the leader of the government said, oh, we want a constituent assembly. So, is this an accident? It's because the social pressure of the masses make possible what yesterday was impossible.